So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session, Catalyzing Innovation in Latin America, Building a Collaborative Future. My name is Vanderlei Ardelli. I'm originally from Brazil, and I lead the specialist in science, technology, innovation at the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB. So this session was organized by the Latin American Network of Innovations, RELAI, and the Agile Policy Initiative. I would like to start expressing my gratitude for being invited and putting Latin America on this conversation. And it's a big privilege to be here with my colleagues from all the region in Latin America. And I also want to give a special thanks to my fellow curator, Pablo Peralta, for his excellent work and collaboration on this panel. Latin America innovation landscape is rapidly evolving, driving a dynamic entrepreneurial spirit and a growing recognition of the importance of knowledge-based economies. The public innovation agencies have emerged crucial on this process, playing a very important role in fostering a more robust and inclusive innovation systems. These agencies are instrumental in design and implementing policy innovation innovation policies that support research and development, facilitate technology transfer, and provide crucial funding and mentorship for startups and small, medium companies. For me, it's a big pleasure to welcome from the region two exceptional voices to our panel. So all the way from Uruguay, we will have Sarah Goldberg, a board of directors members at ANI, the National Agencies for Research and Innovation, and representing Chile. We are honored to have José Miguel Benavente, Executive Vice President of Corfo, the Chilean Economic Development Agencies. Please join me in giving a huge, enthusiastic welcome to our panelists. So the session will be as follows. I will do some initial questions, and we have 36 minutes. So, and after I would love to have your participation, so you can participate on the panel too, and be invited to this discussion on innovation in Latin America. So, Sarah and José Miguel, I would like to start with, from your perspective, for those that you're not from Latin America, Sarah and José Miguel has a huge experience working not only in planning, in design, but implementing innovation policies. So it's a big opportunity to deep on this conversation and about the Uruguay, about Chile, but also in Latin America. So in your perspective, what's the most shift that occurred in the last years in Latin America that boost in some way the innovation, the entrepreneurship activities? So you can.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Vanderlei. It's really a big pleasure to be here, to be chatting with you and José Miguel. I think that there were a few or several changes or things that happened. First of all, we put innovation on the table, yes, and we know that innovation is carried by startups, or I don't know if startups, new companies that don't have the fear to fail, to go wrong, to do different things and to try. This is one of the things. The other things is that we accept that we are different, so we try to design the policies and the programs and the different instruments, thinking in what we need and what is happening in the region, looking to other countries in the region like Chile, I always say that always are a few miles away, and the people is asking and they want to be more creative, more innovative, and do different things. So the soil is ready for us.
Hello. Well, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much, Evander, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, in the case of Chile, it's very hard to. You have to go a little bit past in the past and to read about the history, about what happened in Chile. I would say that like 20 years ago, there was a switch in especially the way that the public policies see how to promote economic growth in general in Chile. We went through a process of opening up the economy, and then there was a lot of changes, structural changes. For those lagged firms just disappear, and then there was a lot of, especially foreign-owned firms who came to Chile, etc. And there was to traditional sectors, which is fine. But afterwards, you need a second step on your growth strategy, and one of the growth strategy was based on the new firms related with entrepreneurship and innovation. Innovation in the established firms and entrepreneurship in the new firms. So I think the role that the state played on that game was very important to create certain mechanisms to foster innovation, entrepreneurship in Chile. One of them is the creation through Corfo of these risk funds, and there are already 20 years of history of promoting through financial area the creation of new firms. Then 15 years ago was the Startup Chile program, created also at Corfo, what is mainly used to be, or probably today, is still the largest public-owned accelerator in the world that put Chile in the map of entrepreneurship to attract, foreign people to stay in Chile to, accelerate the firms. So, and at the end of the day, when you see, for example, Startup Chile as a program, the main effect of Startup program is not related to how much sales and new firms were created. The main effect, which is documented, we already work on that, is the effect these have done in the Chileans as a way to see entrepreneurship to become a way of living and create wealth in your own country. So this is very interesting about for example, the Startup Chile program, is the effect that has, entrepreneurs coming from abroad to stay in Chile for a year and then interact with Chileans. And then the Chileans realize, the young lads participate in the program, that this could be a very interesting. And then the figures arise. Then the impact in terms of new firms and some unicorns and employment and export, etc. And together with that, which is also interesting, then the private sector start participating actively in terms of how to finance this. So nowadays, half of the funds that we have, some of them, Corfo participate as a subsidy in terms of the funds, but now most of the funds are public owned and publicly managed. So in a certain way, it's a switching in the in the way that society sees now entrepreneurship, at least in Chile. It's a way that is an alternative way of people to create value through new firms, not only focus on the Chilean market, which is very small, but also to a large market. So if you follow the figures in terms of creation of firms, and dynamic ones, gazilles or whatever you can call them, have increased notably in the last 20 years, and the role that the public sector have played, together with the private sector in that, I think have been also very important. And we can talk about the challenge that we are now facing after we have gone through all this process before, and now we're facing new challenges, not only because of the world, how it's evolving, but also because we already burned, using the same languages as we already burned certain stages previously in the case of Chile.
Give me
Go ahead.
what Jose Miguel said is right, is true. The thing that happened in the other countries, the neighbor, is that our entrepreneurs look what was happening in Chile, and they force us to do the things that they were doing. So that is a snowball that happened in all the region, and I think that is force us to the public sector to be more open, looking for what was happening in the region too.
Thank you. I take this effort to look around, to see other countries, to see best benchmarks, to understand what's going well and not so well in some other countries, and reflect about the collaboration between private and public sector. when you look the instruments in the last 20 years from innovation policies, it's increased a lot the collaboration between those. At the beginning it was just public sector. Now we have a lot of different instruments that connect the two dots. So, and it's not easy. It's not always easy to put two different animals to have a conversations and with trust, with commitment on the same time to answer the needs and this kind of thing. So I would like to understand a little bit in your perspective in Uruguay and in Chile, how the private and the public sector are collaborating in order to improve or to boost the entrepreneurship and the startups and the innovative companies.
We start collaborating. We start doing the things together since the very beginning, I don't know, 20 years ago. We start working with the first incubator that exists in Uruguay, 2 incubators, one of them all private, the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center of the one university, Ort University, and the other one, another incubator that is half public and half private. We always know that the private sector must to be with us working. We have the first co-investing funds almost 10 years ago. We know that if we go with the private sector, we will have a bigger validation. So it's the private sector is our partner. We take the private sector like partner, and we want and we need to do things together. All is based on the trust. I always said the same thing. I think that, and maybe repetitive, but the trust is one of the things that we have to believe, really. We don't have to believe that the public want to win, so they are going to do bad things and the public is going to lose. No. It's a win-win relationship, and like I said before, we thought in this for the very beginning, and I think it's working.
Yeah, I mean, in the same line, I think that at least 3 areas which I think are important. The first one, which at least in the case have applied, is the private sector has to trust on the public sector, and especially in the consistency of the public policy related with the promotion of entrepreneurship. This is a very important signal for the private sector. So at least in the case of Chile, as already said, these programs of funding from the Corfo of the funds and the risk funds have been for 20 years. Startup Chile already have 15 years. This is a very unique and rare situation in Latin American countries, or most of the people who are here, which you see, independent of the government who is on stage, right wing, left wing, or whatever, this kind of policy have maintained through time. So if the private sector sees that this is going to maintain in the future as a trustable, step and signal, this is very relevant for the private sector. That's one thing. The second one, as Sarah was saying, is that both parties see the benefits about this kind of policies. In the case of the private sector, it's obvious. If you have some support from the public sector in terms of nudges or subsidies, etc., which are not very large, at least in the case of Chile, but it gives a consistency through time, and they see the benefits from themselves, which is fine. But also the public sector have to see benefits because doing on this. Say, well, this we create in value, we create in new sectors, we create new people who are involved in the production mechanism and the innovation ecosystem, etc., and which is good in terms of the way we evaluate from the public sector this kind of policy. This is the second one, and the third one, and I think is very relevant. I will use this framework of evolutionary way. I mean, it's a co-evolutionary process between the private and the public sector about this kind of policies. Because at the start, nobody knows what to do and what you're expecting to do. So when you start with, for example, typically in Chile or in other countries, the public sector supporting firms individually. We're still doing that. But after several years, you realize, well, this is not enough. You need to promote the ecosystem, the other pieces who are needed for the firms to can grow, including the promotion to export. But at the same time, you discover you need some more sophisticated financial mechanism. Okay, and then the private sector, the non-financial and the financial, realize, that they have to be more sophisticated in the way they evaluate the process. You evaluate, the mechanism. You evaluate each of the firms. And property rights, for example, still an area where still there's a learning process ongoing. So I see that this is a virtuous circle, but every player, both players, if you want to add it then in the public and the private sector, then we can talk about the role of the university, etc., is that it's an evolutionary process that the interaction not only of Chilean entrepreneurs with foreign entrepreneurs, but also the Chilean funders on the financial side interacts with foreign providers of financing is also very relevant to how to organize, and to allocate the funds. So I think this is one of the characteristics, at least in the case of Chile.
Super. For those that doesn't know the role in the government and to implement the policies in terms of the institutional level, how is the main role from Corfo and ANI in terms of addressing the challenge of boosting science-based entrepreneurship? How the ANI and Corfo receive or participate on the decisions for on the state level, on the government level, to see the next years ahead. Which sectors, which kind of disciplines, which kind of areas these decisions are made? How is the role that ANI and Corfo has in the respective countries? I think this is important for the audiences outside of the region.
Okay. It's a good question. I think that one of the principal roles is to give data, to give and to process data that the government can take that data and make policies database. Yes? Not to design a policy because I think that it could be useful. One person told me that I have to do that or this. The base data decision is one of the things that we learn. We didn't in this way before. We learned with the time that we needed data to take decisions, like in a company, like in a startup. So that is one of the first things that ANI approve and use and do. And the other thing is that we have connections, we have a network, and the government always, the different governments, this is another thing. In Uruguay, at least, the government change, yes? The colors of the government, the parties change, but the institutions are maintaining, yes? ANI started working 20 years ago, maybe? 20 years, exactly. And all the different governments keep giving us a budget, and all the years the budget is more important, and the things that the government asks to us to do are more important. So I think that we did the things okay, and our role is very, very transcendental. And another thing is try to, the trust, of course, always, and try to help them, help the government to think in an innovative way. Yes? Try to think out of the box and help them like we help to the entrepreneurs and to the companies. We try to the university too, but it's harder to think out of the box. I think that those are some of our roles.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. As I already said, I mean, we have this kind of evolutionary process in terms of learning, which is the best policies. And then after a time, we implemented the Startup Chile. I was on the other side. I was an academic, so I would start, reading and seeing and evaluating and see what is going on. Then two things happened. The first one is because the way the program was designed, at the end of the day, some of the funds who have been supported have been heavily skewed towards sectors who are intensive in digital and in algorithms, which is mainly meaning that they are not intensive in labs and science, okay? Because of the way the program was designed. So that's one thing. I say, okay, well, what's the problem? Because of the pandemic, we discovered, meaning the country discovered, there was a quite interesting stock of firms and people trained in biology and biotechnology who are providing services to certain traditional sectors, agro-industry, etc. And they were, taking and used because of the pandemic to work towards the COVID. But then they discovered there was a lot of, critical mass of potential firms and potential people who can become entrepreneurs based on science. Not only was it coming from the university, but also, private-owned ones. So what we have done is to create another program during this administration. It's called Startup Labs. And mainly the idea is to complement Startup Chile, which the focus of this program is and we put $10 million to have infrastructure of labs, dry labs and wet labs, mainly oriented for those science-based technology, startups. So what I'm saying, and now we already have one in Santiago, and now we're making a public tender now, today, as we speak, and we're expecting at least 8 of them coming from different places. We're going to finance, because we don't have much money, probably 2 or 3 of them. And they're heavily, as you have said, focused on certain technologies. The one in Santiago will be related with clean technology. Why is this important? Because, the labs, the infrastructure have to be consistent with the technology that you're going to support. You cannot have everything there. 10 million is a lot of money, but not enough to have. And the problem is there some facilities in terms of lab in Chile? Yes, of course. Where they are at the university. Are they using an entrepreneurship? Of course not. They're used for research, which is fine. So you cannot share it. Okay, so you have to dedicate it, kind of facilities to promote this kind of science-based entrepreneurs. So what I'm saying is, we discovered, because there's 2 situations. One is the way the program was designed, Startup Chile, and 2, because of the pandemic, then we discovered there was a lot of potential, especially not in Santiago, in other places. So we ended up, closing this gap, creating this new program called Startup Labs.
Super, thank you. Talking about challenges, I was participating in a lot of the panels during the Congress, and if I have to summarize, there is problems or challenges related to regulation, or being more agile to open and close companies, and has to be with financing, has to be with language. There is some countries that the problem is with the English. I mean, it's much more easy to do business in your language than English, which is the global language. There is problem with talent. There is problems related with small markets. So in your perspective from innovation agencies, which is the main challenge that in some way hinders or create obstacles to innovation in Latin America? It's a good question. It's an easy question.
No, all that you said before. All that are our problems. We are very small. Our market is nothing, 3.5 million. Like I said yesterday, we are like a neighborhood of São Paulo in Brazil. Nothing. We need people to to learn how to be more creative, how to be more don't have fear to the risk and to innovate. Things related with regulations, of course, we always try to be more fast in terms of open and company, be more digitalized in the government, but it still be a great challenge. And I don't know, maybe other big challenge is to keep putting together the different actors in the same table. The government talk with the entrepreneurs, with the government and the public sector. One thing is the government, and other things is the public sector. So the public sector has to talk with the startups, has to talk with the universities. That is a big challenge, how to make that the public sector innovate. Yes, it's not public procurement. There are different things. They are together, yes, of course. But first, they have to learn how to innovate, and they don't have to be feeling bad about this. Another challenge, of course, is education. And financing, yes, we have, nowadays we have two Debt Valley, no? The first Debt Valley, well, I validate, I have the MVP, well, I need the first pre-seed capital or the seed capital, but the second Debt Valley, when I have to scale up, I have to go abroad, so that is another challenge. And related with that is the private sectors have to learn that they can invest in startups. And they can, and they have, and they will win, of course, if they do it, because they put out of their companies a big issue that is test, that is try, that is prototype. The startups can do it more easily and more fast.
Yeah, I do agree on your diagnosis, and I would answer in the areas where, as Corfo, we can have an effect rather than other ones who are not our responsibility. I would say, for example, regulations, small markets. It's not an area where we can have a lot of influence. I will separate the answer in two areas. One is related with the supply side, and the other one the demand side. On the supply side, you can think about a pyramid, as the way we see it. And most of the work we have done in Corfo and in Chile in general is related with the middle part of the pyramid. I would say is mainly to promote through non-financial and financial instruments, especially focused on startups. So there are two challenges, at least in the case of Corfo, both financially and non-financially. First, to increase the base of the pyramid. This is meaning you have to increase the number of ideas, literally a deal flow of projects that can have access to either public or private, participation, and then you can increase the amount of results and exits of that. So the way we're trying to do it is, when you see the figures in the case of Chile, especially dynamic entrepreneurship is coming from very unique places around the country, mainly in Santiago. So we think that the talent is spread out the country. So probably it's a problem of opportunities that good ideas can reach the middle part of the pyramid, you see? So in a certain way, you have to be actively participating and have the spaces where you can, these people who are normally on the regional area can have the opportunity to go through this funnel, this pyramid. So this is have a bunch of certain public policies related especially on the territory. And the other problem we see is exactly what Sarah was saying, on the top of the pyramid. We have a problem with the scaling up. It's not a problem with startup, it's a problem scaling up. And you have two problems there. The financially and the real side, the non-financial one. So for that, you need more sophisticated, more larger kind of funding for this scaling up process, where you have now seen, because of the size of the markets, you have to see, of course, sometimes overseas. Okay, so this is an area where, in the case of Chile, for example, we now have a program which are direct linkages of exiting, and you can be listed in the Chilean Stock Exchange in Santiago very easily. And in the last year, we already listed 5 of them. Before that, for 5 years, there was none. So the effect of that have been quite interesting. So this is on the supply side. And the other one is on the demand side. Most of the programs in Latin America have been thought on the supply side, meaning that the entrepreneurs have to discover the business model and then they see where the demand is. So what's the difference when you already have the demand and then you define and design a solution based on technology and science then to attend and to match to that demand? This is done actively in the more sophisticated countries. In the case of Latin America, this demand is not well structured, especially for those who's coming from the public sector. So innovative, for example, public tenders, which is a new program in Chile, which is mainly a copy of what's happening in Spain, or a few other alternatives for the demand coming from the productive sector to structure challenges and problems in a certain way, and this also the public sector may play a role, actually we're playing, in a certain way that then the suppliers, meaning the entrepreneurs, will have a vivid idea or clearer idea what the demand is expecting. And also the opportunity to scale up very fast. Because if you promote, for example, you provide a solution for one hospital, which is very relevant for that hospital, then you have, 300 hospitals in the Chile, at least, or elsewhere, where you can increase, the sales. So the demand side also plays an important role, and this is also a challenge, at least in the case of Chile in the coming future.
Super. I'm going to go deeper on this demand side. This will be my last question, so if you have questions, be prepared. We have some time to get some from the audience. This session, when the organizers offered the space, this session includes inclusive growth. And in the past, some years ago, we are expecting from innovation policies just economic growth. Now, we are expecting that innovation policies touch base in challenges, in national challenges or social and environment problems. So if you have some concrete example how from your agencies you are tackling these problems or these challenges, and look into the national challenges or some specific social environment challenges and trying to work on them through innovation or through your instruments on your agencies.
Yes, we have 2 big programs of challenges. One is the public challenge, another the private challenge. The private challenge, big companies came with a problem, they don't have the solution. It's open innovation, no? They don't have the solution, they don't know how to resolve it, and we help them to find the right or the more accurate startup or company, it could be a SMEs, that give them the solution. Yes, it's very based on collaboration, in create together the company that put the challenger on the table and the startup or the people who is going to give the solution or to build the solution together. And if we can put a university or a R&D center, it's better. And we work together to try to that happen. And it's not only we put money. It's not only money. It's money and methodology that they can do the better solution. In the other hand, we do similar things with the public sector. It's different because in that case, we work a lot in try to to learn, to give them capacitation, to work with them, to try to help them to identify what are the problems, try to develop the solution, inside the organization. That's the first step. And if they can't do it, we open the space to other startups, company, universities, R&D centers, to help them, the public sector, to look for the best solution. And then all work together is trust. We need trust, we need collaboration, we need all to talk in the same language. That is a big issue. And in that case, we put all the money. That's the difference.
Okay, super.
We give all the funding.
Jose Miguel, if you can share the answer.
Okay, in the case of Chile, this is only on the demand side, not on the supply side. We're already doing a lot of things. On the demand side, we divide it in two. The social area is more related with this public innovation tenders, calls, and mainly we asked, those ministers who are more related with social issues, health, education, etc., who are the first ones we are doing, the pilots, using this mechanism. And in the case of the private sector, we're using challenges related with externalities related with sustainability. For example, we already launched, public polls of lithium, new technologies to upload lithium, also solar issues, and also related with other sectors which may have externalities in terms of circular economy as well. So we call these challenges raised by the private sector, which the solution can be from entrepreneurs, but also have an impact on what we're doing globally.
Excellent. So you have a time, just a short time. I don't know what's happened at the time, it disappears. So someone, Vicent, you are the responsible. So some questions, please. Anyone? And here in the front, if you can introduce yourself, would be amazing.
Sure, thank you. I'm Daniel from Colombia. I run the Rebel Business School there. We help micro businesses start and grow and strive. Often with conversations with government, I find that there's a lot of hype and emotion around startups, but micro businesses are a little bit like left behind, like who helps them? And well, they are 99% of the companies in most of our economies. My question is, how can we make micro businesses also sexy for these type of programs, or what is your take on those?
Thank you, Daniel. Anyone, please. So you get one, just another one, and with that we'll be closing.
Hi, I'm Camilo from Ecuador. We don't have much funds from public sector, and we're looking forward how to make from angel networks or private investors to do it in very early stage. But we don't know if there's an opportunity to do good business there, and if you have any opportunity, any experience on that as investors.
The last one, please.
Yes, my name is Paola. I actually work in Kansas City, but I'm South American as well, so I can understand very well what you're explaining. My question is how the local community support entrepreneurship. How entrepreneurs, if they feel or not supported by local community, not only institutions and public or private sector, but actually day-to-day citizens.
Super. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask to the question of the Colombian guy. We have in ANI we have 4 areas. We give funding to R&D projects, to capacity postgraduate people, to SMEs to innovate, and for startups. So not a huge, but an important part of our budget goes to SMEs that want to innovate, that have to innovate. Is not only digital transformation. No, another agency work with that, but we work every day with SMEs to try them to innovate. Here we talk about startups and VCs and that work, but we work all day with SMEs and we try to connect them. It's not SMEs or startups. We think that is very, very, the problems are similar, are common. Maybe the startup was born to be global, and when they think the product, they think I'm going to sell this in the USA, and the Smiths maybe think I'm going to sell this in Uruguay or in Argentina, but how they create and how they found the money and how they go through the problems is very, very similar. Think that they are all different is what makes us to treat them different, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up the two of them. So, yes. The answer to that is very complicated. I mean, normally the gaps they're facing, especially the micro we have, is mainly a financial one. So this is one side, and then we have a lot of mechanisms to support that, and especially on the ground level, territorial level. To make this more fancy, as you said, the way we see it is, which is the way you can transmit this kind of technology improvements to firms. And we believe it's not the diffusion of technology, but extensionism mechanism, which is mainly programs who are packed, already. This is very particular in the agro area, where you have public institutions who create these technologies and pack them and put it as a package, and then transmit it to the especially the micro, for example, farmers, etc. And the evaluation that we've already done is they're pretty good, but they have to trust, on these institutions that the technology that they're putting aside is, and have to be with financial tools at the same time. And also, they don't have time to learn and spend time doing, going and have lectures, etc. Something have to be provided to them on site, in situ. This is one thing. And the way to do it is through, the local communities. The decision about what to do and where to do it had to be taken at the territorial level. So avoiding the national decisions about these issues, what I have done in Chile at least, is to, in a certain way, to pass the power of decision of this kind of programs to the local communities. Local community meaning the organized civil society in allocating these resources. That's the way we have done. And in terms of, on your question on the private, every single program to promote innovation, entrepreneurship in Chile have been private. Everything is private. It's money you put there on the side, but for example, the funds, the risk funds, are organized and managed by the private sector. There's no single money coming from the public, except it's a lending mechanism that you lend to the fund and then you can recover it back. So it's not a subsidy, or we cannot, by law, we cannot participate in the equity of firms, in Chile at least.
So we are running out of time, so please continue this conversation during the event, and enjoying that Sara and Jose Miguel is surrounding. So please, let's finish with a big applause and for you and for our panelists. Thank you very much.